Hello gamers, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about Fallout 3, about their main storyline, how it actually started, where it started, who made the game, actors and more. Before we start, I just want to say thanks to fandom Fallout 3 wiki. Without it I would be never able to make this video. Also need to say that I'm not gonna cover up the DLCs of this game about Fallout 3. I'm gonna make a separate second part of this video where I'm gonna briefly explain all 5 of Fallout 3 DLCs. I'm just going to mention them in this video, but that's it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Before we immediately jump into the game, I think it's best to explain the Fallout franchise in the beginning. So Fallout started with Fallout 1, 2 and Fallout Tactics. They weren't made by the Bethesda at the begin with, they were made by different developers. Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 was made by the Interplay Entertainment, Black Isle Studio as well as the ON Group. But Fallout Tactics was made by Microforte as well as the 14 East. Later in around 2004 and 2008, Bethesda finally got the rights to make a Fallout 3 game that we have right now. Bethesda Game Studios, often simply referred to as just Bethesda, is a video game developer known in open world RPGs or an immersive storyline. The studio has a rich history and environment with the Fallout franchise and many other titles. Bethesda was founded in 1986 to 1994 by Christopher Weaver in Maryland, USA. Initially, the company focused on sports games and other smaller projects. In 1994, they released the Elder Scrolls Arena, which marked the entry into the RPG genre. The Elder Scrolls series in 1994 till now, Bethesda gained a widespread recognition with Elder Scrolls series. Following the Arena, which is their first title, they released Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall back in 1996. However, it was the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind in 2002 and Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion in 2006 that culminated the studio to international acclaim. The Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim was released in 2011 and became the most successful titles compared to any other games they released. In 2001, Bethesda Softworks, the publisher arm of the company, became a subsidiary of the ZeniMax Media. This allowed Bethesda Game Studios to expand its reach and resources. Over the years, they released over successful titles like Fallout 3 in 2008, Fallout New Vegas in 2010, and Fallout 4 and 76 in both in 2015 and 2018. I also need to mention that Fallout New Vegas wasn't made by Bethesda. It was made by Studio Obsidian Entertainment, but they were using Bethesda's engine while making the game. Later on, Bethesda got acquired by or bought by Microsoft back in 2020 in September. Microsoft announced its intentions to acquire ZeniMax Media, including Bethesda Game Studio, in a landmark deal with $7.5 billion. The acquisition bought Bethesda Game Studio under the Xbox Game Studios umbrella, giving Microsoft exclusive control over their future projects. Bethesda recently created some interesting titles which they announced on social media. After they were acquired by the Microsoft, Bethesda continued their work with Starfield, which just recently got released, and Elder Scrolls 6, which they are still in process of making. Before we further dive into the story, I also need to mention actors who voice lined in and were a part of Fallout 3 title. many of you know, was Liam Neeson. He was voicing James, or father of our main character in Fallout 3. Malcolm McDowell was President John Henry Aiden, as you can see on screens right now, as well as the Ron Perlman, who was the narrator. Now everyone knows Liam Neeson's popular movies like Taken, Kinsey, Honest Thief, and many more. And Ron Perlman was also in movies like Hellboy, Hand of God, and many other famous movies. While Malcolm McDowell was in movies like Star Trek Generations, Time After Time, Halloween, and many other titles. There is of course other actors than just 3 of these, but these are very famous and known for. Fallout 3 series is set in post-apocalyptic world where civilization has been devastated by the nuclear war. The backstory of this war started in integral part of the game's lore and it unfolds over the course of the various games, but the basic premise is this. The 6 parts of this war, I'm gonna briefly explain all 6 of these. The first one was the resource wars. In the mid-21st century, the world resources, particularly oil and uranium, began to run out. Fossil fuels have been depleted, leading to a global energy crisis. Scarcity of resources led to intense conflicts between nations and corporations. These conflicts are collectively known as the resource wars. The second part is the United Nations and annexations. As the resource wars escalated, the United Nations tried to maintain order and broker peace among nations. However, their efforts were largely unsuccessful and the United Nations eventually dissolved, and many countries faced economic and political collapse. The United States in particular saw severe economic hardships. The formation of the European Commonwealth in Europe, the resources wars led to the formation of the European Commonwealth, a union of European nations. The European Commonwealth had access to valuable resources in the Middle East and Russia, which made it a target for other nations. The SINO-AMERICAN War. The United States and China, both facing resource shortages, became the 2 superpowers in a conflict known as the SINO-AMERICAN War. This war largely fought over the last remaining resources in Alaska and eventually escalated into the full-scale blown conflict, the Greater War. Greater War in 2077, which is the year where it was happening, tensions between the United States and China reached their breaking point. On October 23rd, 2077, both sides launched their nuclear arsenals in devastating exchange. This event is known as the Greater War, and it marks the beginning of the Fallout universe as we know it currently. The Fallout shelters. In preparation for the looming nuclear conflict, the United States had developed a series of underground Fallout shelters known as the Vaults. These vaults were however made by the company called Vault-Tec and intended to protect and select a portion of the population from the nuclear devastation and its aftermath. However, many vaults were actually part of serious and unethical experiments conducted by the government to people. Aftermath. The nuclear war left the world in ruins, with the most of the population dead, mutated, or struggling to survive in the wasteland. The Fallout games are set in the aftermath of this war, where players navigate a world filled with radiation, mutated creatures, and remnants of the once advanced society. The exact details of how the war started, the motivations of various nations, and the events leading up to the Greater War are explored in depth through the Fallout games, providing players with a rich and immersive lore and stories. Now that we explained briefly about the company, developers, backstory and more, now we can finally start with the main story and plotline. Fallout 3 starts with Chapter 1 called A Post-Apocalyptic World. The game begins where we're born as a baby and we create a character. Later on we face a different amount of time skips where game shows how we grow up in and live under the Vault. Vault was 101. Fallout 3's story unfolds a grim and desolate future. The game is set in the year 2077, just 2 centuries after a devastating nuclear war left the United States in ruins. Players step into the shoes of the Lone Wanderer, which is the main character of the Fallout 3 and many other titles, a young resident of Vault 101. The ground was very secure and every vault had an overseer. The protagonist's life, however, takes a dramatic turn when their father mysteriously disappears from the vault, setting the stage and the game to an epic adventure to capital Wastelands. But where exactly is happening Fallout 3? So Fallout 3, just like I said, was happening in 2077. It takes place in Washington DC or Northern Virginia and parts of the Maryland. After we escape the Vault 101, the Lone Wanderer embarks on a journey in the capital Wasteland. The capital Wasteland is harsh and an unforgiving place, filled with mutated creatures and hostile factions and radioactive hazards. The Lone Wanderer's search for their father takes through the iconic locations such as the Megaton City built around the atomic bomb, and the River City, a massive derelict aircraft carrier that serves as a bustling settlement. After completing a bunch of missions and getting information, we finally got information about our father's job before. Before, our father, James, was working in institute. He was one of the many scientists who were working on the Project Purity. Project Purity takes a big part in Fallout 3 plotline. It was originally designed to purify all the water for safe consumption for the people, but later on it was abandoned. The player's father, James, after escaping the vault, returns to complete it, drawing the player into the quest. The Enclave and the Brotherhood of Steel seeks to control the Project Purity, leading to conflict. Player choices influence the outcome, however, affecting access to clean water in the wasteland and the regional state. It symbolizes the hope and ethical dilemmas in a devastating world, with player decisions shaping the game's ending and the capital Wasteland's future. While the Lone Wanderer follows the trail, hopefully to find his father, he also uncovers a sinister plot involving the mysterious organization known as the Enclave. The Enclave is a group of remnants from the pre-war government, armed with the advanced technology and desire to reclaim and control the wasteland. The Lone Wanderer's journey leads them to discovery of the Project Purity, a water purification system that could provide clean water to the entire capital wasteland. This technology becomes a key focal point of the story. Throughout our journey, the Lone Wanderer encounters a diverse cast of characters, some of whom become valuable allies, while others pose significant threats. Notable companions include Dogmeat, a loyal canon, a super mutant with a deep sense of honor. Meanwhile, factions like Brotherhood of Steel and Raiders via the power in the Wasteland, each with its own agenda and philosophy. The climax of the story arrives when the Lone Wanderer and their father, James, finally reunite in the Project Purity. Their joyful reunion is short-lived as the Enclave launches an attack to seize control over the region. The Lone Wanderer and their allies must take a fateful decision that will determine the fate of the wasteland. Activate Project Purity and provide the clean water to the suffering population, or use it as a weapon to eliminate the Enclave once for all. The story of Fallout 3 concludes with a dramatic and emotionally charged ending, shaped by the player's choices throughout the game. The followed fate of the capital wasteland, its inhabitants, and the lone wanderers' companions all depend on the decisions made by the player. Will they be a selfless hero, a ruthless tyrant, or something between? Fallout 3 is a captivating narrative of survival, exploration, and more choices set against the backdrop of the post-apocalyptic world. Its rich storytelling and immersive world building have made it a beloved classic in the realm of video game storytelling, ensuring that the tale of the Lone Wanderer will be remembered for generations to come. And that concludes for this episode. Please let me know in the comments down below what you think about this episode. What should they change? Is there something wrong that they did not include in this story explained franchise that I'm planning to start and on? And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.